In this video, we're going to talk about using Blender's particle system with hair emitters, and it doesn't need to be hair, but for instance in this scene, all these trees are generated using that hair system, and you can use that to vary and adjust them, and I found this to be fairly useful, whereas the hair system itself, to use that for like a person or an animal, if it's something that has very short like fur and it's fairly rigid, then it could work pretty good. If you want to be able to have it like be long hair that's flowing and whack into things, it doesn't work with the physics engine really well yet, so you can get hair going through itself and through the mesh that it's attached to as well, which is kind of a little bit odd. So anyway, I was playing around with the settings earlier, working with the particle system. This is a little bit of what I was talking about as far as it going through itself and going through the object. And what I want to do is just kind of show you where the settings are, how to initially get to where you're using it, and to try some things out with it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a fresh instance of Blender here, and I'm going to start with just using the default cube so we don't have to move it, but I do want to add some vertices to that. So in our default scene, what I want to do is I'm going to take the cube, tab into edit mode, and I want to add some vertices to this, so I'm going to just click on subdivide, raise number of cuts to 10, and then I can tab out of that. Over in my properties editor, I'm going to go ahead and click on the particles tab. I'm going to click on new, and then in this first section here, I'm going to go down to where it says type and change it from emitter to hair, and you'll see that it has hair just kind of standing straight out from there. I can adjust the number of segments, which I've moved to 5, so I can see it move a little bit more detailed. Also, speed, I haven't done anything with that. Where it says advanced, if I turn that on, we can get some additional settings under emission. I'm going to change the hair length down a little bit just for this one, and we're going to keep the number at 1,000. We can add other hair strands, so it does less, so it relies on the computer less to do calculations by incorporating what we call children, which means it treats this as like a guide for other particles, or for, in this case, other hair strands. And so I'm going to go, and if I go down to the play settings in Blender and hit play, I'll get nothing happening right now. But if I go back and I turn on hair dynamics, check the little box in the properties editor there, and you can expand it too if you want. I'm not going to really mess around with the settings, although there's stiffness, there's mass, so you can do those. But if I hit play, I get the hair falling down to the sides, and then you can see how it moves. One of the things I noticed, like particularly using a cube, is that the hair is standing straight up right at the moment, and that's probably not what you want. There's a few ways of getting around that. Probably not making a hairy cube would be one of them. And so I'm going to go down to where we have some of our additional settings, and I'm going to go all the way down until I get to the section that has field weights. And so this is where you can adjust some of the things on how it interacts with gravity, some other settings. Also right above that there's a setting for children, and if I click simple, you notice that it'll put a lot of different hair strands in there, and I can do for where it says size, I can change the size of those strands or increase the randomness of them for how they are. We can also use interpolated, which will give you a little bit better results, but takes more calculations to do. I'm going to go ahead and go again further down the list, You can also do things like curl or radial or wave or braid or spiral. That'll affect how those are linked together. I'm just going to go with nothing for the moment. And then I'm going to go down to where it says vertex groups. And here we see that they have options for density, length, clump, kink, all of those things. So what we're going to do is we need to create a vertex group for this cube. I'm going to go ahead and go to the vertex data on the properties editor, the little triangle with the 3 vertices on it. I'm going to go to vertex groups, plus the plus symbol to add another group. I'm going to double click on it and just call it hair. And then we're going to tab into our cube. And here I have a weight of 1 or 0. I'm going to set it for 0 right now. And I'm going to go ahead and say assign. I'm going to tab back out. I still see all the hair there on the particles. Go back to the particle system. And actually go back to the vertex area, and I'm going to go down to where it says geometry data, and I'm going to check all 3 of those boxes, the store vertex bevel weight, store edge bevel weight, store edge crease, just so it can use that information. I'm going to go back to the particle system here, and I'm going to, where it says density, click on that box, choose hair, and some of my stuff went away there. That's okay. We can get that back later. I'm actually going to hit the back arrows to start right at the beginning. And then we're going to do a little bit of editing here. So I'm going to go into, from object mode, I'm going to click on the little window at the bottom of the 3D viewport that says object mode. And I'm going to switch to where it says weight paint. And I'm going to, on the tools menu, I'm going to have the weight set to 1. And so right now blue represents 0. And I'm going to do full strength for starters. Once I start to paint, I should see that kind of take place there. I should see that fill in. I'm going to go ahead and tab into edit mode here. And just to give a little bit of some difference to this, I'm going to change this up a little bit. Control B is the bevel tool, and scroll will add kind of a rounded edge. So since I'm painting on the edge, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to tab, and you can see that that actually did model into this thing. The curve data was still there, and so that worked out pretty good. I'm going to just do a little bit there, and because of the way I painted, I actually got a line going across. That's okay. We'll go with that. And then I'm going to set my weight down a little bit here just to see what it does. And so I'll do some on the side, some down there. There we go. Some random patches of hair on the cube. I'm going to switch back to object mode. And I'm right back at the beginning. I'm going to hit play. And there I see kind of animate and move. I still don't have anything happening up above. If I want to, I can pause, go back to the first frame, and I can change from object mode to particle edit. And then they have some different things here. They have comb, smooth, add, length, puff, cut, weight. And so I'm going to go to where it says comb, and I'm just going to put a line through those so that they're kind of sideways there. I'm going to go back to, and maybe actually I'll go and do a little bit with the puff. I'll turn the strength down a little bit. And just kind of, that kind of pushes things out. So we'll do that. And then I'm going to go back into my object mode. I can see it. I'm going to hit play. It'll start to calculate. You can see it by the red line. And you do notice that it falls through the cube in places. I can change that by adding rigidity to it. Changing some of those settings would work pretty good. There's also in the particle section, I'm going to minimize filled weights, and I'm going to switch this over to cycles renderer, and now I have a new section that says shape and root, scaling, and tip. If your computer's been crashing when it's when it transitions in and out of edit mode or changes shaders, you probably don't want to try this with yours. Let's add a light here too. Let's go down to lamp. We'll go ahead and do a sun lamp, and there we go. Okay, so on this, it looks very broken up, probably because of the sections, things like that. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But what I can do is in the cycle settings, actually I don't want that, I want the cube, there we go. In the cycles hair settings, what I can do is I can change some of these settings. So root is how thick it's going to be at the start, getting thinner as it goes. Tip is going to change the end of it so that it makes it thicker. And you can have thicker ends than you have starts. And you could animate this like that. It looked really weird, just saying. We can also do scaling and mess around with that. And I think I just froze my program. I see my processor is going crazy now. So I did freeze that last one, but what I did was I want to show you one other thing that you can do. Right now I have this cube that I took the bottom off of, and actually if I take the sides off of it, I could make it so that, there we go, we have no other edges around here for the trees to grow out sideways. And when you're working with something like this, if you wanted to do a forest or something using particles, something that you should know is that it doesn't do the direction in the same way that you have your tree. In fact, this is my tree and I had to rotate it on the side. The center point is on the base here. And what I would do with this is I would actually end up hiding it from a render so that way it doesn't show up when I render it. And the problem with this is that you really need to use like 3D cursor or something else to make sure you rotate it from the base. You don't want to rotate it from another point. And I'm going to go back to midpoint there. But as this rotates, those trees, actually not there, if I tab into it and I have everything selected and I rotate, the trees all will rotate around and they'll usually start off down on their sides. So do that. And you can do a lot of things in the settings. So first of all, to get it to do this, not only do you want to be in a particle system, but with hair, you don't need dynamics because it's not going to matter for this. But you're going to go down to where it says render, object, choose an object. In this case, I chose my tree, of course. And you can do some additional settings with it, like you can change the size. So you can alter that. You can also do, rather than just size, you can do random size. So some are smaller, some are larger. I'm in cycles right now, so if I render this, let's add a lamp. So I'm going to go down to lamps. Let's go ahead and do a sun lamp. And then let's rotate it. Get a little bit of a shadows going there in the trees. And so you can create a forest pretty easy to line up setting fairly fast and edit, change it as you go. So anyway, those are some tools and stuff with the particle settings. In the next videos, we're going to go into modifiers for shapes, and those are going to be shorter. You don't have to watch all of them, but I want you to be aware of the skills. I'm going to ask you to demonstrate those on your slides.